Welcome to Ench Technica TV, where we bring technology into focus by talking to leaders with technology of interest to engineers. Today's guest is Brittany Mays Ing. Brittany is a VP of the Maritime Division at Siemens. We've been dealing with their digital software industries division. Brittany was recently part of a panel that went before U.S. Congress committee to testify about AI. It was the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Technology, led by Chairman Ted Cruz.
Hi there.
Hey, Brittany.
Hi, Brittany, you made it.
Yes, I apologize. I tried to text you and send you a note as soon as I got into the Uber.
And thanks for keeping me up.
It's a long haul, but usually it's about 35, 40 minutes.
Okay.
90 minutes is the longest that I've sat.
That's a new record. Well, you don't look any worse for the wear.
Zoom has the touch-up appearance mode. Rupinder, it's great to meet you.
So I watched your what would you call it? Was it not a hearing? Hearing is for criminals, right?
That sounds right. Yeah, hearing,
a panel
testimony,
discussion? Okay.
yap session with senators.
I don't know if we could have handled ourselves that well.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
That was amazing. Yeah, like Rupinder said, it feels like you're a celebrity. And I was like, yes, she is.
I don't know. I certainly do not feel that way, but I appreciate it. It was an incredible kind of out of body experience, I would say.
Was it? Yeah, you were well prepared. Now I see here this the panel was called Less Hype, More Help, AI that improves safety, productivity, and care. And I was just wondering, after I read that, I thought, how did that call come to you? How did Siemens Maritime get involved with that subject, right? How'd you get that call? Were you like really surprised? What do they want from me?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the reason that they called me is because I am relatively new to the maritime space. So I'm about 2.5 years in and working with the Navy and about 6, 7 months into this role. But in my prior role, my entire job was actually architecting and implementing digital transformation projects for manufacturing. So I was a lot more cross-sector. So I worked in consumer goods, retail, healthcare, life sciences, and then of course a lot of aerospace and defense. And so they wanted somebody that could speak to shipbuilding, just given the audience of the senators that are on that subcommittee. Across the aisle.
Shipbuilding was a subject right off the bat. That was a known subject. That wasn't
It was, absolutely. Okay. But they didn't just want to talk about shipbuilding specifically. They wanted to talk industrial AI applications across manufacturing sectors.
Okay. I want to talk about shipbuilding too. So it's just fascinating right now with all that's going on. And but before we get started, I wanted to get clear on this division of yours, the Maritime Division, because I know nothing about it. I've been covering the digital software side of things.
Yeah.
And, like the NX people and this Team Center people.
Yep.
Those tools. Now, the Maritime Division, does it use those tools at all, or does it have its own shipbuilding and design tools?
It does. So we leverage the full suite of, what we call Siemens Xcelerator. You mentioned a couple of our core capabilities there. You may know we also recently, last year, acquired Altair. And so we leverage the full suite of Altair products as well, inclusive of a couple of really interesting and niche shipbuilding applications like Lift Ship is an example. And then we use our entire suite of, Mendix agentic AI capabilities as well. So we leverage kind of the full stack of what big Siemens has to offer from a software perspective. And we sort of push different levels of maturity of those products. Maturity is defined by curated for shipbuilders or for ship design or for just broad kind of part manufacturing, depending on the company and the use case.
Got it. So when you say shipbuilding design tools, that seems strange to me. I cover all these industries, aviation as well. Aviation doesn't have its own set of tools, right? But shipbuilding seems to have its own purpose-built tools that are different than generic design tools.
when you're designing a ship, of course, there's all of these different variables and factors that the ship has to be able to navigate against, thermodynamics, waves crashing onto you, like all of just like the macro environmental factors. And so the design simulation capabilities that we have, once again, they're more, they're still out of the box, but they've been developed in partnership with, our customers. And so they're more focused on specific things that ships need.
These ships are massive. They would have their own forces and own considerations that are different than even like a big airplane. I saw it somewhere though that it could be the biggest 3D model or most
Yes,
sophisticated 3D model ever made was one by, is it by Hyundai? Hyundai
with
had it.
HD Hyundai. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that was massive. So impressive. I don't know how many
Yes.
parts it had, but it was like in the millions, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
So,
Most
so
complex bill of materials or bomb that that we could ever
ever.
imagine.
Yeah, you broke the
Yep.
record because
Yep.
before that, the only thing I remember was that 777, the 777 that was created. Oh, this was like 30 years ago. Boeing created it with CATIA, I think, and maybe their own homegrown software. But when that was done, that was the biggest thing ever done in 3D. But now ships have the record, huh?
Now it's HD Hyundai holds the record. That's right. That's
Right.
right. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because that digital twin specifically is visualized with NVIDIA, capabilities. And so it's fascinating because it's got the complexity and the depth of, the huge bomb, but then it's got the incredible visualization to be able to actually see that's, powered by NVIDIA. And so it was a super interesting, I'll say, use case to show how that partnership has been able to play out.
Yeah, yeah. So the whole ship is being made digitally. Like the shipbuilding facility is digital, the ship itself is digital, right? The biggest or most modern, or maybe both shipbuilding facility right now, the one in South Korea.
They're definitely one of the biggest, most sophisticated players in terms of designing and producing ships globally and certainly within South Korea as well.
You're not an engineer, right? You are.
I'm not an engineer
Right.
by trade. And so
Okay.
yes, I've had to learn very quickly. And my background is actually in management consulting, which in some ways has served me very well, and in some ways, I've had to unlearn certain things. But one of the things that's really helped me is in consulting, you have to learn very quickly sort of what's important and tie and piece a lot of different themes and factors together in order to solve like a very complex problem. And that skill set has helped me in this role just to kind of learn as fast as I can.
Yeah. I imagine if you can
Yes.
handle senators, you can probably handle engineers too, right?
Totally different skill sets. That my joke is that in delivering implementation, digital transformation and implementation, that
Uh,
engineers are actually one of the hardest functions to get to change because the by virtue of a high performing engineer, that person has a very strong conviction on how to do the job. And that's actually like why they end up being so good, right? And so trying
mhm.
to highlight the art of the possible or different ways of working and kind of work with them to get their buy-in on how to do change control differently, right?
Right.
There's an art for sure to facilitating those conversations and designing the right future state that the engineers will actually adopt.
You knew that the Congress committee was going to talk to you about the maritime, but then, as conversation always do now, it ended up being all about AI, right? So,
Right.
and you were well prepared for that, so you must have seen some of that coming. Okay, the question everybody asks about AI is how is it going to affect jobs and
Yes.
retraining? That came up. You handled that. I want to go a little bit deeper into that. The news right now, especially in tech, is like AI is going to take over so many
Yeah.
jobs, right? Do you think it's going to take away jobs in shipbuilding?
So actually, my very strong conviction is that AI in shipbuilding is not going to be taking jobs. And the reality on the ground is almost the opposite, which is like we are in a desperate need for more players on the field, both on the, so we need more naval architects. We need more people working for the shipbuilder OEMs, like doing the design. We need loads of more individuals, actually in the back shops, on the dry docks, like actually, performing that work. And I mean, it's significant where that talent gap is of what we need to fill in order to meet the demand that has already been, provisioned from the government and otherwise. And so, I can give kind of two examples to make it real from at least from where we're seeing is at least in a manufacturing environment, we're seeing that industrial AI is actually it's reducing time spent on manual and repetitive tasks. So by automating, planning and documentation and analysis, it really does free up the engineers, on the shop floor to focus on more of like the craftsmanship and like the problem solving skill sets that are still very much so needed there. The other example that I like to give is that industrial AI is also being used to actually improve first time quality, right? And so you don't have to walk a shipyard to imagine that oftentimes there's a lot of rework, right? That's any manufacturing environment, right? There's often rework, but just given you can imagine the footprint, these shipyards are massive. You have material all over. The complexity for how you execute the work is extreme. Some shipyards are using advanced technology and tools like that Siemens provides so that you can sort of look at 3D models and you can like, it kind of works with you to execute, but some are still using printed, 2D papers and things like that, where if you have to like reach overhead to fix something or pull something down, you're having to do this massive physical orientation, not only of the thing that you're trying to fix or assemble or whatever it is, but also with the drawing or the instruction, right? You're having to do all these like mental gymnastics. And so there is a lot of, quality and first time quality. It tends to be a core target or KPI for a lot, at least of my customers. So industrial AI is kind of helping to guide some of these decisions up front, reduce that rework so that that same workforce can actually just start pushing out more output. And frankly, it's reducing burnout, right? Because if you take an employment engagement survey, executing rework due to, quality is typically not the top of the list of things that are on their enjoyability rating for their job.
Right.
But yeah, so those would be two examples on the manufacturing side. Do you want me to share a little more on the engineering side as well, or?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
on the engineering side, to your point, so a lot of people understand the term copilot now, right? And so when we talk about copilot and Siemens products, you can imagine, you open up and you're doing designs and you have like a copilot interface where you can basically say, hey, as it turns out, I need this thing in blue, not red, right? Can you advise me on which supplier I should work with and how to update the BOM? And it's like you're literally working with a co-pilot to advance a lot of that like design engineering and then physical engineering activity. And we've seen pretty rapid adoption of those types of capabilities that once again, we don't need fewer engineers doing design. We need more people doing this kind of work so that we can increase the throughput
Right.
um, on the back end.
Yeah. And I think you tried to get this across that we need more Americans to get into more American companies,
We
more of
do.
American effort into shipbuilding. I think
We
I was trying to
do.
put myself in your shoes, right? In
Please.
front of
Yeah.
somebody. And I was thinking, okay, you're representing Siemens AG. It's part of Siemens AG. It's a
Yes.
German company. You're
Mhm.
you're in an industry which is heavily foreign, right? I mean,
Yes.
we are making what 1% of the world's ships right now, the US, right?
Hmm.
Something very minor,
Very low.
insignificant, right? We can't even get our naval ships made in a hurry. I felt the committee was going to ask you, what are you going to do to bring shipbuilding back to the US? Did you feel like that? That didn't really come across, but I wonder if you thought that might have been the motive for this panel.
It definitely crossed my mind as something
Okay.
that could come up. And, you know, what's interesting is that in this space on politics, kind of rebuilding our maritime strength is actually a very bipartisan topic, right? If you look at some of the legislation and things like that that's getting pushed, it's all bipartisan sponsorship, right? For the most part, at least the things that I'm aware of, not being a government affairs expert, of course. And so walking in to the hearing, I, of course, anticipated that I might get different types of questions and things like that. But I have seen in my conversations, both from that hearing as well as more broadly on the Hill and at the White House, and just kind of in the DC circles, I would say, that most politicians are actually really interested in this because it's creating jobs, and it's frankly it's a critical part of our national defense. So I would say, what's the phrase of, you know, you can't really solve a problem until you name it, right? Or there's a quote from Albert Einstein that's like, if I have an hour, you know, to solve a problem, I want to spend 50 minutes defining what that
Yeah.
problem is, you know? And I think that what I've observed is that that is a common framework and a mindset across the board, is that people want to know how is Siemens specifically going to help? And our response has been, we are here to provide that digital backbone software platform that enables all the things upstream, design engineering, all the things downstream for manufacturing. We want to be active participants in helping the government and industry understand how they're going to meet demand, where there's, you know, significant supply chain gaps, where there's manufacturing gaps. And of course, we want to be part of the resolution to solve that with our digital twin, digital thread technologies, and things like that.
Hmm. I think if they looked at your LinkedIn profile and you showed the American flag there behind you, they would have been, they
Yes.
would, they would not have been of any, have had any fear. I'm not a political analyst either, but I know enough to know that it is a vital concern, our lack of shipbuilding ability. You know, China is running away with it. They have so many shipyards, so many ships in the Navy. I think South Korea has the next most, and Japan has a few.
The best way that we can actually support national defense is by enabling that digital thread platform so
Mhm.
that whichever programs do move forward and whichever suppliers are going to help rally to get those built and ready to go to war, that everybody is able to do that a little bit more seamlessly and a little bit more quickly. And that is really kind of the power of that digital thread, is that you're taking that bill of materials, you know, that's based on the requirements that the government's giving you and being translated into these engineering designs, and you're translating it all the way through. Doesn't matter if it's, you know, within the four walls of an OEM with the supplier, there's a lot of flexibility there, right?
Right.
But you're basically able to demonstrate that agility no matter which direction or ultimately which platform you're building it for.
Okay. So Siemens Maritime supports both commercial. Maritime includes
Yes,
commercial and and
we
military,
do.
correct? Okay,
We
all right.
do. My group
What?
is, I think, the only group within Siemens Software that has both federal and OEM. Uh, we're special.
My first job offer coming out of school was actually for the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard.
Wow.
Have you been there?
So, I have not actually been to the Philly Yard yet. I'm sure
Okay.
you're familiar with, they were recently, not even recently anymore, but acquired. But
Acquired,
yeah,
yes.
they are doing some amazing things there at the
Uh,
Philly Yard.
Acquired by a South Korean company, correct?
Hanwha, that's right.
And which is odd, right? Aren't they the military? They're making ships for the military, and it's owned by a foreign company. That's never been done before. That's a first, I believe.
So the AUKUS
Uh,
agreement with
uh,
Australia and the UK and the US, I would say would be the most adjacent kind of program or trilateral agreement that I would say
okay.
is would be applicable there.
I
But yeah.
guess, I guess. It reminds me a little bit of the space program. Like NASA gave up a lot of its rocket building and then farmed it out to other concerns, not necessarily foreign concerns, although but private concerns. You said you were in a consulting group, Deloitte, I believe, right?
I was, yeah, at the beginning of my career. And then while I was at, the consulting firm, I actually started implementing Team Center and Op Center for industrial customers. And
Okay.
so having done that, I'd been talking about this concept of digital thread for about a decade. And I felt like I had finally found it. So I actually picked up the phone and called Siemens and said, hey, I want to be part of this thing that I really truly believe now that I've seen it in action is transforming, engineering in the manufacturing sector. And so I did that. I've always worked with aerospace and defense customers across all of my roles. And, I have kind of a somewhat classic American story and that, I really was blessed to be a first generation, college student. My family is comes from a lot of military and, don't tell my Navy customers, but I come from an Air Force family. And so, for me, I never had the opportunity to serve. And so I had always been kind of looking to figure out how I could be part of our national defense and be part of building that platform. And so everything just kind of worked out perfectly in my journey at Siemens to be able to work with the Navy and then to be able to jump into this role where I still get to support both federal and, commercial for shipbuilding.
Who did you have to convince? Was it Roland himself that you could do this?
I have met him before. He is much taller than me, so I do
He's a
look
tall
up to
guy.
him both professionally and
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
Um,
I've never felt shorter until I took a
yeah.
selfie with him, and it's like towering person.
Yeah, yeah. But what is interesting about Siemens being such a big and complex organization is that our software business unit specifically is actually headquartered in the US in Plano, Texas. And so it is interesting, just to see how, of course, we're a global company, but it's really cool to see how at least our software group does have a very significant presence in the US and a lot of our coders and code being developed and everything like that is, being built in the US for our US customers. So,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
So the commercial ships that are being built, are they vary, they're across the board, cruise ships, tankers, cargo ships, big
That's
ships, right?
right.
Big
So it's
yachts.
big.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you have probably heard that um there's a huge surge now in production of unmanned surface and unmanned underwater vessels as well. So USVs and UUVs. And so the footprint of these vessels is not as large as a tanker or a hospital ship or, anything like that. Um, but that has been a huge shift in the US specifically for design and
Uh,
build.
how big of a division is this, the maritime division of Siemens?
It's pretty big. I mean, our team in the US is like essentially hundreds of people who support maritime.
Is that in the same headquarters as the software division in Plano?
We're not all located in Plano necessarily, but it's the same division. So digital industry software. Yes. So we have product development teams, we have, pre-sales, we have services engagement teams, right? As well as, of course, like sales teams and things like that.
I just finished reading this really good book about women in tech. It's called Exit Interview, and it's about a woman who had a division in Amazon. And she oftentimes found herself the only woman in the room.
Yeah.
Right? Does that happen to you?
So first of all, I will say kudos to you for reading that book. I haven't read it yet. I would say from my perspective, statistically speaking, of course, manufacturing historically has been more heavy on the male side. But
Yeah.
I will say that from my perspective, it's not really the lens or the qualifier that I look at when kind of forming the teams. We really focus on defining like culture and creating like high performing teams. So I have found that there's a lot of strengths and uniqueness in being a woman in manufacturing that I'm able to tap into. And it ties back to what my real passion is, which is making work better on the deck plate. And in order to do that, we have to be focused on what makes people tick and what's going to resonate to be able to support them to actually adopt, technology. And I've definitely found that has been a great honor and also a great strength of being a woman in this space.
If you heard of Kara Swisher, she's probably one of the best tech reporters I know, and she's oftentimes talking about this very subject. Women in tech, there just isn't enough of them.
I'm part of a book club. So
Yeah.
we read one book a month. And so I'm always looking to see what the good books are out there so that when it's my turn to pick that, I land the plane well with my book club. So
Oh, I'm glad to know somebody else who reads. It's a dying sort of thing. So
yeah,
let's keep that alive.
let's keep it up.
Yeah, Brittany, so nice to speak to you. Thanks so much for educating me on what Siemens does in the maritime division. I'm really happy to meet you. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks for listening to Eng Technica TV. If you'd like to tell your story on this podcast, contact me at rupinder@engtechnica.com or message me on LinkedIn.